The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to Fearless, Fabulous You. I am your host, Melanie Young, and thank you for joining me on the Women for Women Network. You're watching live. It is November 12th, 2025, and I am addressing a topic that is so important and has impacted so many of my friends, my loved ones, and including my husband and I, David. November is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Of course, I believe that awareness in all health and wellness topics are a 365 year-round consciousness effort. But November is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and more than 6.2 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and many people are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's. In fact, last night, a very good friend of mine came over to visit, and she is currently caring for her 78-year-old mother who has Alzheimer's. My husband, David, just recently lost his mother who had Alzheimer's. And I could go on and on about friends now who are in the caregiver role, which is, I've been that person as well. It's not easy to go from family member, whether it's a spouse, a daughter, or, a sibling, to caregiver. So today's show is going to address the topic of caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. And my guest is someone that I know personally because she used to be my neighbor in the Hudson Valley when David and I lived in Gardner, New York. And her name is Lyla Yastion, and she and her husband, Edward, were our next door neighbors. And we spent a number of wonderful evenings just sitting out, having drinks and talking about life and the environment and politics and current affairs, and really great memories. Lyla shares a very open and honest account of the 6 years where she served as the sole caregiver to her husband, Ed, when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. The diagnosis came while we were still living in New York. It was in the early time. We have since moved. Sadly, Ed passed, I think 2 years ago. And Lyla has written this very open, honest, and informative book that I think would help anyone who is caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. It's called, let's show it on the screen, My Years as an Alzheimer's Caregiver, Transcending Loss by Nurturing Spirit. It is a new release. It includes her detailed journal entries, as well as a lot of research that Lyla did about how the brain functions. Lyla has a PhD. She is a teacher, and she and Ed actually came together through their love of philosophy. And we're going to share their love story, and then we're going to share how Lyla helped Ed and cared for him to the end of his life. And hopefully from this, you'll have some takeaways if you are currently caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's. So Lyla Yastion, welcome to Fearless, Fabulous You.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. It's good to see you.
Well, I have to say your book hit a lot of nerves. I had to read it in pieces because even though my late mother did not have Alzheimer's, the caregiver part it hit a lot. It really touched a lot of nerves. So I read it in pieces, and your honesty and openness is just remarkable. So thank you for sharing that. Before we get into what you went through over that 6 years, would love for you to talk about Ed and how you met, because you had an amazing love story and you were married for 54 years.
Yes, we were. We met actually at a drama school in New York City. We were both students at the Herbert Berghoff studio.
Mm-hmm.
And he met me, he stopped me in a stairwell and asked to read my palm, which of course intrigued me. He had a kind of intensity about him, disarming smile, and he basically swept me off my feet. We developed a romantic relationship, and we also found out that we had a common interest in philosophy, spirituality, and even Russian literature. So that's how we met.
Wow, you had a fruitful career. He also, because acting is not always an easy way to earn a living, he had a carpentry business, right?
Yes, he did. He was a master carpenter and cabinet maker.
Right.
He remodeled all of the houses that we lived in, including the brownstone in New York City, where we lived for 10 years.
Oh, wow. So what are some of the, I know that spirituality bonded you and the school that you became involved with, I think it's called practical philosophy.
Yes.
What tell us about that bond and how it enriched your life
Yes.
together?
Well, while we were dating and in the early years of our marriage, we actually continued with the theater, and we founded a summer stock company in Rhode Island and did a number of seasons of plays. But we had this deep interest in self-development. So living in the city, we joined the School of Practical Philosophy. And we took classes and taught classes there. The school is eclectic in its methods. It gathers the spiritual traditions of the world in order to teach the art of presence, of staying in the now so that you have a chance to reach your higher self. Meditation is offered, and that became a lifelong practice for us. We lived in a brownstone on the Upper West Side at that time with some good friends who were in the school also. And that's where we raised our two boys and shared, of course, in the parenting activities. So even when we moved to the Hudson Valley, family and spiritual work remained the anchor of our marriage.
Absolutely. And your family, you have two sons and you were moved closer to be with them in the Hudson Valley. And at that point, you were at retirement age. So you lived in this it is a beautiful area and very spiritual in itself.
Yes.
Really, really wonderful. And I remember you used to go to Florida to spend the winters. That's what brought us to Dunedin, because you went there and we were like, if Lyla and Ed go there, it must have something really interesting about it. And we found out it did.
Yes. Yes.
And, 54 years, what an amazing, how lucky are you to be able to marry anybody for 54 years? I don't know if David and I won't reach that because we got married so much later in life. We're still maybe going to make 18 this year and see how it goes. I remember we used to have great conversations. He's a tall man. You could tell that he was a very handsome, and instead you played the piano, you had your cat, you garden, you had a very fulfilling life. So when was it, at what point and at what age did you notice that his behavior was starting to show signs that there may be some concern? And this is important because there's just, I show signs of concern sometimes and forget things. But when does it go from, I don't know where the keys are, to, is there something else we should see somebody about?
That's a good question because we all forget things. I mean, I do too.
Right.
I forget where did I put my glasses? Where did I put my cell phone?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a point where, yes, you need medical help. What happened was, we were in Gardner at that time, your neighbors, and we were able to get in a trip to France in 2015, which was wonderful because we were celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary with family.
I remember. Mm-hmm.
But then starting around 2018, I began to notice things. He was misplacing objects, putting dishes away in the wrong places. Now, he was never a fan of kitchen cleanup duty, so I didn't take this seriously in the beginning. But then he would do some strange things, like he'd put a peanut butter jar in the freezer or leave a half can of wet cat food in the cupboard. And I began to notice he was forgetting things like what he's just said. or what I just said, and our conversations got disjointed. He would repeat questions like, how old am I? Or even something like, where do I sleep? So I realized there was short-term memory loss, and that's when we needed to go see the doctor.
About how old was he at that time?
He was just about turning 84.
Okay. So, that's not uncommon for people of that age
No.
to slow down or even earlier.
Yeah.
I'm curious, telling someone, I know what it's like with my husband. If I told him that I think we need to go see somebody about something, he'd be like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. That's meant. I'm fine. So how did you get him to a doctor? And what kind of doctor did you go to start the conversation? What was the process to lead to the diagnosis? Because a lot of people don't know where to start to find out what the answers are.
Yes, that's right. We were in Florida at the time. It was the winter. We were on vacation there. And I suggested to him that we just go to our doctor down there for a checkup.
Right.
He was okay with that. And the doctor asked questions like, who's the president? What day is it? And those things. And I noticed that he was not answering questions very well. So the doctor actually prescribed a CAT scan followed by a PET scan. We went to the nearby hospital and got the CAT scan, which basically just showed normal deterioration for a man of 84.
Right.
But it's not a detailed scan like the PET scan is. PET scan actually targets the parietal and temporal lobes, which is where you find an indication of Alzheimer's, because there would be damage, major damage, plaque buildup, Dow tangles, all this stuff. He didn't want that. He didn't want to do that. So I finally convinced him, because I said, Edward, we need to know the facts. And so he got it. And then when we revisited the doctor and he told us about the results of the scan, that yes, it did indicate Alzheimer's. Now that really brings you up short. It caused a visceral and psychological reaction for both of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that there was no cure. And I also knew that some people can have Alzheimer's for 20 years.
Right.
I was looking forward then to caregiving for maybe 20 years. It was like going into a dark tunnel with no end in sight. Difficult.
Did you, at the time, what resources did you lean on to help you? What did you find helpful, and what was lacking?
Well, I read every book that I could find, obviously, starting with a 36-hour day, which is a classic. But lacking, I mean, there's a stigma to Alzheimer's, and it's still there. So you don't want to talk about it. It's difficult to find. I mean, you can look online and all that. And the Alzheimer's Association is helpful, very helpful.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's something you're dealing with by yourselves.
Very much so. Very much so.
People don't want to talk about it, because it's threatening your sense of your own humanity when the brain begins to deteriorate.
Well, Alzheimer's is kind of where cancer was 40, 50 years ago, when you go, she has cancer, and you whisper it. And now people are very open about cancer, but Alzheimer's is tough because it is a deterioration of the brain. And you go into using your research skills, incredible detail about the brain and understanding it, because you wanted to understand what was going on. That part of the book is detailed. Not everybody can jump, it's not dumbed down. It's very honest and in depth, but it was very helpful to understand. I mean, this is a multifaceted degenerative illness.
Exactly. And I felt it was very important right in the beginning chapters,
right,
to share what I had learned about the brain. And I'm not a scientist in that way, but I studied it and tried to make it as readable as possible, accessible, because you need to know what to anticipate, what to prepare for, if you can prepare, as much as you can.
Well, exactly. I think one of the most helpful parts of the book, and this is just about when Sally, David's mother, was, she had dementia. And then suddenly they said Alzheimer's. So we'll get into that. So I wanted you talk about the stages of Alzheimer's. So my
Mhm.
first question is, when does dementia, which is very common, become Alzheimer's? And then let's talk about the stages, because there's 4 in
Yes.
here. So talk
Yeah.
about that.
Okay. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So, well, dementia is a syndrome. Okay,
Mhm.
there's different kinds, and we can talk about that later if you want. But Alzheimer's is mainly diagnosed through the PET scan, which we now have.
Mhm.
I mean, people probably had it a long time ago,
Right.
in our grandmother's day, and but we called it senility, and people didn't have any way of knowing that
Right.
it impacts the parietal and temporal lobes. But so talking of the stages, the first one is the mild or early stage, and people need to know that that's just what I described before. The person misplacing objects, has memory lapses, can't organize things. I took over the paying of the bills and doing the taxes. Um, and then something called the sundown syndrome, where the person in the evening, particularly, gets very agitated, very anxious. He's beginning to forget things, getting confused. Um, and then denial sets in. It's
You
a
know,
go to events.
That's interesting, Lila, because as I read that and I thought about when I came home to take care of my mother, who hated doctors and would never go get diagnosed for anything. So we really don't know what was going on. I often wonder if that was happening, because every single one of those descriptions: couldn't pay the
Mhm.
bills, anxiety, agitation at night, misplacing objects, even valuable ones. I mean, he misplaced your wedding ring.
Yes.
Uh, oh my God. And you never found it. You know,
No.
my own mother was doing that, so I always wonder, but that is very common, and many people think that that's just not just, but that is dementia. But
Right.
here it's early stage, and that's when it's really kind of imperative to go see some medical
Exactly.
specialists and have, as you said, a PET scan, not just a CAT scan, but a PET
No, full
scan.
PET scan. And then, with the denial, that can last a long time. With Edward, it lasted actually almost till into the 6th year, with little eruptions of recognition and admission along the way,
Mhm. Mhm.
because there's an awareness there in the person. That's to be remembered. There's an awareness. It's our human gift of awareness. And even underneath the fear and the anger and all of that and the denial is awareness. And that has to be respected in the person,
Yeah.
especially as it continues. In the next stage, you're going to get trouble with language, comprehending conversations, being able to articulate what you want to say.
Mhm.
That's because the Broca and Wernicke regions, which are in your temporal lobe, are are deteriorating, and those are centers of language. There's also mood swings that begin,
Mhm.
and losing your sense of your body in space. Now, we don't even think of that, but for someone with Alzheimer's, it's called proprioception.
Mhm.
It's a function of the parietal lobe. I explain this in the book, where you lose your sense of your body in space and its relation to the objects around you. So, for example, we would go out doing errands. We go to the post office, the bank, the shopping, and so forth. We'd get back home. He would be not only fatigued, but completely disoriented.
Wow.
He couldn't keep up with where we were going. Even in his own house, he would
Mhm.
get lost. So there's and the mood swings increase.
Mhm.
And you want me to go on with the third stage, because we need to know about these things.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to, the 3rd stage is it gets into paranoia and delusion, which is
That's
really
right.
a big indication of Alzheimer's, because they can get violent.
Yeah, they can. At one point, when we moved, actually, it was kind of caused by the move to the 1-story house.
Right,
I have never, feelings about that either way. I'm not sure it was the right thing, but he accused me of kidnapping him.
right. He was gonna hit you.
Yeah, I had to call my sons in. I had to
Right.
get help. So there's that. There's depression, emotional outbursts. It's also a time when they forget how to do ordinary things, like putting on their clothes. I went into the bathroom. I remember he had just taken a shower, and he had put his, he was trying to put his tank top undershirt on, and he had put his head through the armhole, and he was stuck. And I unstuck him, and we actually had a good laugh about that. I mean, this is another thing. You have to kind of somehow keep your sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep your cheerfulness. I mean, without being phony, just try to stay upbeat if you can. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And then you have the severe stage where the person sleeps a lot. He has trouble balance and with walking and falling. Edward and I used to have this little routine because he was getting very shaky at that point. This was in the fifth year. We'd stand up. He would stand up by his wingback chair where he sat a lot, and we would stand together and march in place before he walked so that he would gain some sense of balance. But I wasn't always in the room to be there with him, and he fell a couple times without injury. But then finally he did fall and injured himself, and it provoked a stroke. And that's when you come into the final severe stage, bedridden, unable to speak, loss of appetite. And then you can call hospice, which I did, which is a wonderful organization. Very
well, you know, it was interesting. You call, I mean, it's remarkable. 6 years is a long time because I took care of my mother for a year and it just about killed me. Okay. So, and, you know, so hospice is important. And I think it's when you finally called hospice, I was like, oh, yay, she called hospice, because I was like, you need hospice. And hospice is for everybody listening and watching. It is so important to reach out and ask for help, because hospice does everything, including giving you, the caregiver, time to take care of yourself, because often the caregiver's health is, and mental and physical health, is incredibly impacted.
Yes.
As a spouse, as a husband, I mean, I recently had some surgery, Lyla, and I was pretty helpless, and David has had to help me dress. It's been pretty awful. And I can't, and I feel bad. So reading this and just having gone through it at a lesser stage, but still feeling helpless, it is very hard to suddenly go from being a lover and a husband and wife relationship to suddenly you're helping your loved one put their pants on and get dressed and cleaning up it and trying to convince them they need Depends, and you're dealing with a child. And I remember dealing with that with my mother, and that was very hard. How did you work that through in your head? Because I know it was hard for you that way, and also hard for Ed as the husband, caregiver, provider, strong man that he was.
That's a very important point.
Yes.
I mean, a woman has a natural ability to take care of things. I mean, she is a caregiver to her husband, to her home, her children, if they have any, to her pets. So Edward actually appreciated my support as a wife and caregiver. But it was when we got to the need for me to take on additional roles, particularly that of parent.
Yeah.
Because then we had a strain in the relationship, because you remember the person, even though they have Alzheimer's, they're aware, they're sensitive, emotionally sensitive. And he was sensitive to the fact that he was taking a subordinate role as if he were a child, and he's not a child. And I had to be very sensitive to that. And in fact, there were times where I, as a mother, had to lay out his clothes and help him dress. But what I tried to do was step back and let him do as much as he could by himself. But if he couldn't button his shirt and he was getting frustrated, I had to gently, help him. That was the way it was. So with any caregiver coming onto this role for the first time, let me just say that the most important thing is to remember that the person with Alzheimer's is a person.
Exactly.
They're still a human being, and they have a long history. They're a spiritual being. they are aware, even into the end, they are aware, and that needs to be respected.
Mhm.
And I learned that,
It's tough. It's a
Mhm.
tough thing because you do become a parent, and
Yeah,
suddenly conversations become all about, did you brush your teeth? Did you put your clothes on? What did you go to the bathroom? Are you putting it back? And you
right.
forget that you really want to have a normal conversation with person because you want them to feel normal themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Even though
what
they know they're not, they know they have it underneath all of that denial. They know, but you still want to
right.
treat them and as normal because they are to some extent underneath all or
So
everything.
what are some things that you did to try to, well, there's two things. First, what did you do to try to make things feel normal for both of you as over these 6 years as things progressed? And what would you advise anyone? Maybe give an example or two of some things you did
Mm.
together to kind of strengthen you both emotionally.
Well, emotionally, I mean, the spouse, and we're talking about spouses here, but it can be, of course, anyone, your mother, your daughter, whatever it
Right.
is. But as a spouse, the spouse with the Alzheimer's disease needs to feel loved and respected.
Yeah.
So for example, I had to respect and accept the fact that Edward was in denial in
Mhm.
order to shield himself from the truth which he knew until he was ready to accept it. And until he was ready to accept it, I had to accept and try to normalize our relationship as much as possible. I had to learn patience, empathy, um, forbearance when things got tough. I didn't always succeed, but I did learn. For example, when he would get frustrated doing simple handyman things. That had been his profession.
Mhm.
So, say he was securing a flower box on the railing with new screws, and he was having trouble, and I was standing by. He would turn on me sometimes in his frustration and lash out and say, leave me alone. This is what I do. What I had to learn was to absorb those outbursts and
Mhm.
to stay quiet. And I was able to do that when I was able to because I saw that he was suffering.
Yeah.
So my heart could reach out into his pain and soothe him.
They're like, I call them emotional landmines. You don't know when they're going to happen. And
Right.
sometimes you're completely taken aback when they do, right?
Yes, you are. I mean, I the worst one was when he would project his anger onto me, and I had to be careful not
Yeah.
to react in kind.
Mhm.
I didn't always succeed, but when I did, it was because of two things. One, he was sick. I wasn't.
Right.
He was the one having difficulty controlling his emotions. I had the freedom to control mine, and I had to. I
Yeah.
mean, my role was selfless service. Ego had to take a back seat. I knew that. And the
Yeah.
second one was to remind him and myself that we are not the body. We have a body.
Mhm.
We're spiritual beings, embodied souls. And when I lost my bearings, he reminded me.
Well, you drew a lot on your spirituality. You both are you both meditate. You
Mhm.
both come from a point of, because of philosophy and spirituality. How did you work that into a practice to keep you both stable and bonded?
Mhm.
And also talk about things like art and music, which was very therapeutic.
Okay, sure. Well, the practice of meditation remained steady for the 6 years, even though sometimes he would just sit, and I know he wasn't really meditating because he would open his eyes sometimes and say, "Where are we?" or "Do you want me to take the garbage out?" or something irrelevant. But in the evenings, because he slept so late in the morning, we would sit together and meditate. We would sit on the couch with our bodies touching, and touch becomes an extremely important thing
Yes.
for somebody with Alzheimer's because the tactile connection tells the person that you love them.
Yeah.
And it's very important support. So, and then interestingly enough, and this was in the last year, there was a day-long meditation intensive offered at an ashram near us. And I didn't know if he was up to it, but I decided to ask him. And I was surprised by his answer. He said to me, "Of course I want to go. I'm a spiritual being." So, that really moved me. And we did go, and he was able to last through it, even though he dozed off most of the time. As far as art and music, these are wonderful ways to nourish the soul of the person with Alzheimer's. I mean, on the book cover, for example, of my book is one of his Japanese brush paintings.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And his artistic abilities were really awakened during the art classes he took when he was sick. I find that spiritual practices that the person gravitates to, because not everybody has the same spiritual inclination, and creative arts are the two ways that you can nourish the soul. Music, for example, I wasn't aware of this, but music activates more parts of the brain than any other stimulus.
Interesting.
It's uniquely human, hardwired along with language in our brains. And in the book, I talk about the work of Dan Cohen, a social worker who introduced music therapy into nursing home where there were Alzheimer patients in advanced stages. And he found that when he introduced that personal musical favorite for that particular person, that person who was like incommunicado would wake up, light up, move his body to the music, to the rhythm, and then he'd want to talk about all the stories of his youth when he was enjoying that music with other people. So there's a lot there buried in the person that can be brought out through music and art.
I couldn't agree more. It's also very important in cancer treatment. There's a whole music and art therapy. It's across the board. Anyone who's dealing with a major illness or
illness,
end of life, music is so important. When my mother was dying, we played music, and it was over the Christmas holidays. She watched the Nutcracker nonstop.
Yes.
And opera. And I used to, when I was going through chemotherapy during my breast cancer treatment, I would go to the opera and just sit and listen.
Very healing, very soothing. We played music too for Edward when he was dying. We played a certain Sanskrit chants because we knew some of those, and also some monks singing chants. So yeah, whatever the person loves, it's good to play. Yeah.
I think also conversation, another challenge many caregivers have is they lose conversation because they're busy telling the loved one what to do, or it becomes more commanding and demanding versus conversation. Talk to me about how you nurtured the spirit, because this is what a lot of the book is about, through having conversations and reflection.
Well, and I encouraged our grandsons and our sons, because we have 2 sons and 4 grandsons, that when they came to visit, I encouraged them, talk to your dad, your granddad, ask some questions about the theater, about philosophy, things that they knew that their dad loved.
Exactly.
Even talk to him about his Porsche that he had, find out the things that the person loves. And then bring it out in conversation, and you'd be surprised at what they know and remember, and then they get excited. That kind of joy and self-esteem, even if it's temporary, is delightful for them and satisfying.
Yeah, I think too many people come in and they start saying, "How are you feeling? And what are you doing? And what do you need?" And they focus on the disease or the illness and not on the person. And I remember I recorded conversations with my mother and let her talk about her days of yore, because I was doing articles, and we ended up doing a video. This is a great time to capture your loved one on video, doing or audio, because obviously when they're gone, they're no longer with you, and you can go back and watch this. Did you do any of that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm just thinking now. I wish we had. Well, actually, we have a few videos. We do that my daughter-in-law took on her phone, and then we have also tapes that actually Edward made of books that he wanted to record in his own voice,
Right.
spiritual books. And I got headphones for him, and he would listen to those, his own voice speaking the spiritual message that he loved so much. So there are different, and now with the technology, there's a lot we can do to foster that.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody to get the voice and images and record the conversations, because when the person is no longer with you, they can be invaluable for
Yes.
you and your children and grandchildren. And I think that's really, really important. One of the things that was interesting, and this happened actually with my father and also my mother, is as they're in that later stage, there's like this miraculous comeback where they come back, and you're like, are they back? And that happened to you. It was Christmas. Talk about that episode, because it was stunning for everybody.
Yes, I actually put that in the introduction to the book, because it was stunning. And it shows that that the person is still there, underneath everything. In this case, we had invited his niece and her husband for Christmas, and we all were together in the house for a Christmas party. And he was dozing off in the chair, and this was like this was almost to the end of his life, with 4 months. And he was dozing off, and suddenly he came into an erect posture, and he began to conduct a class in philosophy.
Amazing.
With all of the Socratic question and answer, he was normal, completely, not only normal, it was brilliant. And everybody was just stunned and standing there out of breath, because we couldn't believe that this lasted for about 20 minutes.
Wow.
It was as if he was never sick. So that shows you something, doesn't it? It shows that there's still, the capacities are there. They're just buried under loads of plaque and Tao tangles and stuff.
It's really remarkable. It happened. My father literally called me. I went home to say goodbye to him, and then he called and he said, "I'm doing your taxes."
Oh gosh!
Why'd you take all the? And I was like, "But I thought you resigned." And right before my mother passed, we actually did a video with her, and she basically, her voice was strong. We had her propped up in bed. An amazing 45-minute video. Literally 2 days later, she lost her voice.
Wow.
Amazing. But so I do believe, I have not read the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross book. I don't know what that phenomenon is, but it's like that renewed life before you die phenomenon. And I've heard about it over and over again.
Well, yes, there's a lot of documentation about it. And actually, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which was founded by Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, who had a transcendent experience in outer space. Anyway, he established this institute. I would encourage people to go online and look into it, because they study this very phenomenon.
Interesting.
Sometimes it's called paranormal, because people can't understand it. How can a person who's dying and like hours before he dies, and he has no brain tissue left, hardly any left, wakes up and talks to you?
Incredible. How
do you explain that?
It's like miraculous, but it's common, and it's like, wow. And hopefully you do. I thought that was just a pin drop moment in the book.
Yeah.
Thinking about your family. So as you reflect, how are you dealing with your grief since it's been what, 2 years or 3 years now?
It's almost 3. It's
Yeah,
going on
almost 3.
3. Yeah.
How have you been dealing with your grief since his passing?
Well, my family, my
Mhm.
2 sons and their wives and 4 grandsons were supportive during the illness, and after he passed, and they still are.
Mhm.
After the funeral, we gathered together and spread his ashes under 2 young peach trees. We sang Amazing Grace and said prayers, and then shared memories. And that was very fortifying. For myself, though, it was funny. I couldn't grieve in tears for maybe 3 weeks to a month,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
suddenly something triggered it, and I cried for 3 days.
Mhm.
And so you have to kind of give time for the healing of the wound. And then I kept busy. I started teaching lifelong learning center
Mhm.
courses in the lifelong learning campuses, and I still am doing that. And I wrote this book because this book is a cathartic release, but
Yes.
it's also a way for me to share what I learned with fellow caregivers.
So in summarizing it up, and let's put the book back on the screen, Juan. What are some takeaways? What do you want people who read My Years as an Alzheimer Caregiver, and the underline is Transcending Loss by Nurturing Spirit? What do you want readers to take away from this, and particularly caregivers?
I would say to remember that as they're caring for this person,
Hmm.
that the person is a human being,
Yes.
and to draw out as much as you can from that person's life, to explore it with them, to uncover talents, and to remember that the person is a spiritual being, and that you're there to serve them selflessly. There's a wonderful short poem by Rabindranath Tagore, the Indian
Hmm.
poet. If I could just recite it, it's very short.
Yes, of course.
About service, he says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
And that's really, the caregiver role is many people think it's an honored role. It's a
yes,
special role.
it
Um,
is.
I mean, sometimes you just think it's torture, but
Yeah, doesn't
I
always.
know many people said to me, you were so lucky you were able to take care of your mother, or in your case, and you may not feel it all the time,
That's
but
right.
the reality is it's a gift to be able to do that. Many people don't have that gift because they lose a loved one suddenly, and that's another tragic loss that's even completely different, because at least you have time as a caregiver to prepare yourself mentally for the impending loss. It feels like a long tunnel, dark. For me, it felt like a long, dark tunnel waiting for the crash.
Yes,
Um, you just have to work it through. But you were able to spend these amazing 6 years with him to help him transition his life.
yes, it is an honor. It really is. Even
Yeah,
though, as you say, it's not always easy at all,
I
and
know.
you don't always succeed at it. But that's your role, and you're lucky to have it.
And for everybody watching, it is an inevitable part of your life that at some point someone you love is going to need to be cared for. And
Mhm.
many people, I was never a parent, so I don't know what it's like to care for a child, a baby, and that transition. But it's basically your role becomes that again, but in a different way.
Yes,
And you just, again, I think, to underscore, it's about realizing this person is a person. They have a spirit. They're an adult. You have to treat them as an adult. They had at most likely an amazing life, and you
yes,
have to respect and honor that, even if they're not this person they used to be. Right?
exactly. That's well said. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And how are you doing now spiritually and as you reflect back on this? Because I know there are triggers. And for everybody watching, listening, Lila's right. And I'll echo, the crying is not immediate. There's usually something down the road unexpectedly, and the trigger hits and you just become waterworks.
Exactly. It's
Happened to me too.
well, oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one because
Oh no, it happened to me in the middle of Commander's Palace anniversary lunch with David. And I remembered our wedding and my parents. And all of a sudden, I don't even remember the lunch. And I did
yeah.
have a couple 25-cent martinis, didn't help, but I was a puddle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, holidays can be hard. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember the Thanksgiving after he passed, the first Thanksgiving, we were all tearing, even my
Yeah.
son who was conducting the Thanksgiving dinner and prayer, and suddenly he just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, there's the empty chair at the table, and that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
painful.
exactly. There's the empty chair. Exactly. That's what it is. So, but you go on with your life, and I continue to meditate, and I'm reading some of the books that he used to read,
Oh, good.
and that kind of thing, yeah, he's
I
still
think that's
here.
good. You're with him in spirit, and
That's
you've got
right.
these beautiful brush drawings and all the happy memories and the tapes. So
Oh, yes, exactly.
yeah. And you traveled so much. You had a very rich life together. And I think that in parting, I think what's important is, whoever you're with is your soulmate.
Yes,
Try to spend the best of your life, the best years of life doing things you really enjoy and not saying, oh, let's wait. Just do it. Because you don't know when that opportunity may not be there.
exactly. That's very good advice for sure.
Yeah. And, less complaining and criticizing and more just saying, let's go out and have a good time.
Exactly. Good.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Lyla, it's been really great to see you. This was a really amazing book. Like I said, I had to read it slowly and put it down because it hit home in a lot of parts, even though my experience was losing a mother who I think had some dementia. We will never know because she never went to the doctor, but it hit home. And I have so many friends going through this.
Right.
So for everyone watching and listening, again, the book is My Years as an Alzheimer's Caregiver, Transcending Loss by Nurturing Spirit. And yes, the Alzheimer's Foundation is a wonderful source. I think I have it up. ALZFDN.org is what I have. There are resources out there. So, don't try to be a hero alone. Bring people in to help you.
Exactly. Thank you, Melanie. It's been great being with you.
It's been great seeing you. I hope that we get to go back up to the Hudson Valley sometime and spend time up there. We do miss it. We love where we are, but we love where we were as well. Every stage. And I wish you all the best with life moving forward.
Thank you. Same to you, Melanie.
So you've been listening to Fearless, Fabulous You. I'm Melanie Young. The show will be available on over 65 podcast channels to listen on demand. Please listen and share it with someone who will benefit from listening. And you can also see it on YouTube at Melanie Young, my channel. Always, you have choices in life on what you want to do and who you want to spend your time with and how you want to be spending your time doing it. I always say, choose to live life on your terms and not on terms set by other people. And always choose to live fearlessly and fabulously. Thank you.